Breaking news. As Ukraine war escalates, the world is at the brink of a full-blown World War III, and the nuclear powerhouses of NATO and Russia get ready for a global Armageddon. Here's the latest update as the war takes a dangerous turn.
Vladimir Putin is making moves again. The war in Ukraine is escalating. Russia has launched a sweeping attack with new and deadlier weapons. And the Russian president is blaming the West for this escalation.
As we have repeatedly emphasized, the regional conflict in Ukraine provoked by the West has acquired elements of a global character.
The war is expanding. That is the message from Putin. But what triggered this new phase of hostilities? Last week, Joe Biden made a major concession to Ukraine. He allowed them to use long-range weapons against Russia. After the US, other Western powers followed suit. France and the UK also gave their approval. And Ukraine wasted no time after that. It struck a Russian weapons depot last week using Western long-range missiles. Putin responded by launching a new hypersonic missile at Ukraine. Now, this is a brand new weapon, never used before. The missile is called Oreshnik. It means the hazel. Putin says this new weapon is unbeatable.
Because there are no means to counteract such weapons today. The missiles attack targets at a speed of 10 Machs. This is 2.5 to 3 kilometers per second. The modern air defense systems in the world and the anti-missile defenses created by the Americans in Europe do not intercept such missiles. This is excluded.
This missile is faster than the speed of sound. It can penetrate the world's most reliable air defenses. And there is no weapon capable of stopping it. Putin repeatedly emphasized on this point. And he's far from done. He's using more lethal weapons in Ukraine now, like he did last night. Russia launched more than 100 glide bombs on Ukraine. Now, what's a glide bomb? These are old Soviet-era bombs, but they've been upgraded. Russia has installed a satellite navigation system, rudders, and pop-out wings on these bombs. So when they're dropped on a plane, these bombs don't simply fall, they glide towards their target, and they hit them with precision. Each bomb weighs between 500 to 3,000 kilos, which makes them extremely powerful. Russia has been using these bombs for a few months now. More than 1,000 glide bombs have been dropped on Ukraine so far. So obviously, Zelensky is raising concerns. He says Ukraine is defenseless against these new Russian weapons.
Beyond words, action is needed. And in particular, on my instructions, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine is already holding meetings with our partners on new air defense systems, the kind of systems that can protect lives from new risks.
So Zelensky wants more military aid now. His new demand is this: advanced air defenses. That's what he wants. And frankly, this has become an endless cycle. With every escalation, Ukraine makes new demands. A few months ago, Kiev wanted long-range strike capabilities. It had missiles from the West, but it did not have the permission. They were not allowed to use long-range missiles for attacks against Russia. That changed last week when Biden relented. And this capability to use long-range weapons was supposed to act as a deterrent. It was meant to stop Russian aggression, but it hasn't. Instead, the plan has backfired. Not only has it failed to shift the momentum on the battlefield, it has also exposed the gaps in Ukraine's defenses. Russia senses an advantage here, so it's doubling down. It is sending more troops to the front lines. Russia is bringing in mercenaries from Yemen now. Reports say hundreds of Yemeni men have been recruited to fight for Russia against Ukraine. These are believed to be Houthi rebels. They have been promised lucrative salaries and even Russian citizenship to join the war against Ukraine. And this fits a pattern too. Russia has been ramping up military recruitment through attractive job offers like this one. Reports say Putin is now promising debt relief to new recruits. This only applies to Russian citizens. If you sign up to join the fight against Ukraine, the Russian state will pay off your loans. That is apparently the promise. Moscow is also increasingly relying on foreign recruits to sustain the war. First, it was the North Koreans. Now it's the Houthis from Yemen. But how did they end up in Russia? According to one claim, Moscow began recruiting from Yemen way back in July. The first recruits began arriving in Russia in September. Now, not all of them are trained soldiers, in fact. Some are experienced fighters, but most others have no military training at all. So how did they end up on the battlefield? Apparently, they were duped. They were promised jobs in areas like security and engineering, but when they reached Russia, they were sent to the front lines. And this is not a unique case. Such stories have been coming out of Russia for a while now. Something similar, in fact, happened to Indian citizens as well. New Delhi raised this with Moscow. Prime Minister Modi personally discussed this with the Russian president. This was in July when he visited Russia for summit talks. Modi asked for the return of Indian citizens who unwittingly ended up in the war. And in the months that followed, most of them were brought back to India. But now the situation in Ukraine is worsening. Looks like the war will intensify before it ends, and it will have casualties not limited to Russia and Ukraine.
Thanks for watching. Kindly share your opinion on the comments section. Subscribe to this channel for more stories.